Hey everyone, thanks for joining. No prize cards left one more time. And this video actually is not an opening. Usually I do openings of packs and booster boxes and so on. But this video actually is about deck mechanics. And what I mean by that is how a deck flows. Now this is one of my favorite decks. I used to play this a lot way back in black and white. This deck is no longer, valid in the standard format today. You can play this in expanded, but this is one of my most favorite decks that I've ever played, and I used to play this a lot. I used to play this a lot in competition, and this involves plasma, team plasma. It's all team plasma. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to solitaire this deck right now. I'm not playing against an opponent. I'm just going to solitaire it. And you're going to see what I mean by deck mechanics, how everything kind of has to work together. You can't take 60 cards that you like, throw them in a big pile, and say, hey, look, I got an awesome deck, because that's just not how it's going to work. All these cards are old school except for 2 double colorless energies that I got from Burning Shadows, because I had original base set double colorless energies, and I took those out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we'll take our prize cards and set those aside. Now you can see here that there are different the different cards in here. Like Call Rest Machine is you search your deck for a plasma energy card and attach it to one of your team plasma Pokemon, shuffle your deck afterwards. So this is a way to cycle through and get our energy. Now in this deck, a lot of people used to use this guy right here, Lugia. There were a lot of different variations of this deck back in the day, maybe 10 years ago or more. And they used Lugia, which had discarded plasma energy attached to this Pokemon. If you can't discard a plasma energy, this attack does nothing. It does 120, and its ability is Overflow. If your opponent's Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack of this Pokemon, take 1 more prize card. So this was a way to get your extra prize cards to win the game quicker. They would also mix it with, things like Deoxys EX, which is in here, your Team Plasma Pokemon do 10 more damage, and so on and so on. I chose to run with Tornadus. I ran with Tornadus EX because of Jet Blast, which does 60 plus, does 30 more damage for each plasma energy attached to this Pokemon, and his first attack is Windfall. Shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 6 cards. So you basically could, especially when you were able to attack on your first turn, now the rules are that if you go first, you can't attack on your first turn. That is not how the rules used to be. That is an amendment to the rules. You used to be able to just attack on your first turn. You didn't have to wait. So now, as you can see here with this deck, basically, I would put him as my starter now. Snorlax was the other guy. He's the other big hitter in here. He had Team Pack 30 times, does 30 damage times the number of Team Plasma Pokemon you have in play. So I literally would have, 4 Deoxys EXs on the bench, which would give 10, 10, 10, 10, 40 more damage. Plus 30 times 4 is 120. I'd have a 5th one on the bench, that's 150. And him is 180, because it's damage times the number of Team Plasma Pokemon you have in play. So if you have 5, 6 Team Plasma, him as your start or as your active, and 5 on the bench, that is 6 times 30. Alright, that's 180. And then if you had 4 Deoxys EXs on the bench, it would be 220. He had a big retreat cost and everything, but it is what it is. So basically, as I'm going here, what I would do is I would double colorless Tornadus as attached for turn. Okay, I would then play Call Rest Machine and search my deck for a plasma energy. I would attach it to him. Okay, and this is what I mean by synergy, deck mechanics, how everything works together. This deck is all set up on getting the energy. There's a lot of decks that do that. A lot of decks, that's what you do. You just power up your Pokemon quick, you energy them up really quick, and you hit hard. All the Charizard decks do that. Discard energy, blah blah. You know, you got welders nowadays. You attach 2 energy. You know, you used to have blacksmith where you would take, you know, fire energy from your discard pile and throw it on someone, and you'd have the Charizard, and then you'd have, like, you know, the fiery energies that if you discarded for an attack, if it was attached to a fire Pokemon, you discarded it for an attack, you put it right back on it, and you would just go and keep doing that. And this is kind of the same premise. There are Team Plasma Balls in here to go in for your Deoxyses. There's Ultra Balls to go in for different things. Key also is Shadow Triad. As I'm shuffling through, Shadow Triad is put a Team Plasma card from your discard pile into your hand. So essentially, if this was in my hand right now, which it's not, I could play it, get the Call Rest Machine back, play Call Rest Machine again, and get another Plasma Energy, and bam! I have his 4 energy to do his attack. Jet Blast, which does 30 more damage for each Plasma Energy attached to this Pokemon. For 4, it does 60 plus. So if I had 2 Plasma Energy attached to it, that's 30 and 30 is 60, and his initial 60, that's 120. I would be doing that on turn 1 many, many times. Actually more, because I would have my Deoxys EXs on the bench as well. And these sleeves are kind of beat up, as you can see. These are like the original sleeves, dragon sleeves that I used way back in the day. So, you know, at this point I could Ultra Ball, and I would just ditch these, and I could just go in for a Deoxys EX and put them on the bench. I mean, and then I don't really care, because if it was my first, if this was back in the day, you'd be able to attack on your first turn. I just Windfall, shuffle my hand in, which I don't have a hand, and draw 6, because I don't have 4 energy on it to do the attack. Or if nowadays, if it was my first turn and I went second, you know, I'm my first turn but the second person to go, I just Windfall and I shuffle my hand in, which is nothing. So I'll just shuffle my deck to shuffle it for no reason, and then you draw 6. There you go. You tell your opponent to go. Now I go, and I am just pretty much gonna just demolish this guy right now. I am just gonna put on another energy for my attach for turn. I'm gonna put a Deoxys EX on the bench. I'm gonna play Master Ball, which is an A-Spec card, when you used to be able to just have one of these in your deck. A-Spec cards, you could have one in your deck. I'm gonna search for another Deoxys EX on the bench there. Okay, and see here, the camera kind of is a little off here. Let me push this stuff up here. Sorry about that, guys. And you can just see how this deck is going to go. You know, you can just see how this deck is going to pan out, where you just, I'm doing 60. Another 60 is 120, 30, 40, 50, 150. That's 150 right there. But I don't even have to attack yet, because I'm not even at that point right now, because I got Professor Juniper. I have ways to get my Plasma Energy back, like 6 Shadow Triad, get a Team Plasma card from your discard pile back in your hand. So what I would do at this point is I just Juniper and draw 7. Old school energy retrieval. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And Call Rest, obviously I don't need to tell you how key that is. You just shuffle your hand into your deck and then draw a number of cards equal to the number of bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. So right now I have 4. I'll have 5. Now here's where it kind of gets a little tricky, where it's, do I put the Thunderous EX on my bench? He's good as a starter with the Radiant Knuckle, attach an energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Team Plasma Pokemon, because it's just to attach an energy card. It doesn't have to be a basic energy. So when you discard your Plasma Energies, or if something gets knocked out with your Plasma Energy, you just make sure you have an Electric Energy in your hand, or like a Rainbow Energy. I have Rainbow Energies in here. You just have him up there as your starter, and you can get a Tornadus EX on the bench, and you just start feeding back the Plasma Energies, you know? So, that's just basically where it's at. I mean, I'd probably put this on the bench, and I'm just going to pound away. 60, 60, 120, 130, 140, 150. And there you go. And here you have the Team Plasma Grunt, which is discard a Plasma card from your hand. If you do Team Plasma card from your hand, if you can't discard Team Plasma, you can't play it, and it was draw 4 cards. So, you know, basically I have something that I don't need. I could just discard and draw 4, and so on and so on. And that was the basis of this deck. That is the basis of this deck, is you just energy up Tornadus EX and you swing away. Now, a lot of people would do it with this guy, Lugia EX, in the attempt with the overflow to get that extra prize card. But it does 120 damage. If I have 4 plasma energies on here, I could do 30, 60, 90, 120, his 60 is 180, and 4 Deoxys on the bench is 220. Back then, during the Black and White series, like when all the Team Plasmas and everything were out, 220 would annihilate anything in the game. 220 was knocking out Charizard EXs and so on and so on. So I just went for the straight power. This is 120. And then if you had 4 Deoxys on the Deoxys EXs on the bench, it would add 40 damage, would be 160. There was a lot of times that 160 just wasn't quite enough. As you can see, Deoxys EX himself has got 170. You know, he's got 170. Thunderous EX, 170. So that 160 hit was just not enough. It was a little bit shy. So I ran with the Tornadus EX. And there's lots of different versions of this deck. Like I said, they had the Lugia, they had this. 1 of each, two of each, whatever. Some people played it, you know, they had their own thing. But that was my setup, and this is what I ran with. And this is by far one of my most favorite decks that I've ever played. It just worked so well. All the cards in this deck, they just flow together so nicely that it was just such an awesome deck to play. And as you can see, I'll just kind of thumb through it. You had your Tornaduses, you know, and I'll just kind of go through what the deck is. I could separate them into 4 piles, but, you know, 4 this, 4 that. But the deck basically hinged around Deoxys EX, your Team Plasma Pokemon attacks, do 10 more damage to the active Pokemon. Alright, that's basically what that was in there for. The Snorlax was your guy. If you didn't get the Tornadus, you got your Snorlax. And you buff up your Snorlax. You do the Call Rest Machine thing. You attach the Plasma Energy to him. You put a double Colorless Energy on him. You can Shadow Triad. You can put another, get the Team Plasma Energy, or get the Call Rest Machine back from your discard pile. You can get another Plasma Energy. Put it right onto him. This was key right here, you know, put a Team Plasma card from your discard pile into your hand. Now, I can't count how many times, because with 4 Colorless Energies, 4 Shadow Triads, 4 Call Rest Machines, there was a lot of times where that's exactly what happened. My Tornadus would be my starter, and I would double Colorless him, okay, and I would, you know, I would just say, alright, I'll Call Rest Machine, search my deck for a Plasma Energy, because I used that to attach for turn. There you go. And then at my supporter for turn was Shadow Triad. Get the Call Rest Machine back from my discard pile. Play it again. And just put on another Plasma Energy. And that was, a lot of times, that was the first turn. You know, I think it was decks like these that kind of broke the mold for not allowing people to attack if they went first. Not allowing people to attack if they went first. I think decks like this, deck setups like this, kind of broke that mold. Because there were times where if my opponent had just 1 Pokemon, and I did this, and I had like a Team Plasma Ball, and I went in for a Deoxys, and I had a Deoxys in my hand to begin with. I mean, it's 60, and 60 is 120, 130, 140. There were times where you had like, whatever they used to play with back then, Jirachi, whatever, 70, 80 hit points, whatever the case may be, a Shaman 110, whatever. It was literally getting knocked out right then and there. And if that was your only Pokemon, people were... I could win on turn 1. I could win on turn 1 with this deck. Many, many times I've won on turn 1. One card that I really loved that was banned was Getsis. This card became banned. Your opponent reveals his or her hand and shuffles all item cards found there into his or her deck. Then draw a number of cards equal to the number of item cards your opponent shuffled into his or her deck. This was a turn 1 demolish. This was better than N ever was. If I just emptied out my hand and my opponent didn't get to go first, and I had Getsis in my hand, I would play Getsis. I would look at their hand. They had 3 or 4 item cards in their hand, maybe Energy Search, maybe whatever they were going to use to possibly set up their deck. They shuffle it all back in. If they shuffle 2 or 3 cards back into their deck, I would then draw that amount of cards, and I would just demolish my opponent's strategy at that point. This deck was a very effective deck. Like I said, it's one of my favorite decks I've ever played, or had the privilege to play, had the privilege to own. I still play it every once in a while for fun. It's the Team Plasma deck. It's the deck. It is the king deck, in my opinion. It is one of the best decks ever nowadays, playing it against some of the Vs in the meta or VMAXs, even in an expanded format today where they've gotten bigger and stronger Pokemons with more hit points. Not going to be as effective. Even if you ramp it all up and you hit for 220, sometimes that's not even enough. You know, there's VMAXs with 300 and 330 and some Vs with, 230, 240, 270 tag teams. You would still have to hit it twice. But I don't think that their attacks are strong enough. Their attacks would actually be strong enough to knock out the Tornadus, because the Tornadus has only got 180. So there's a lot of times that they would knock you out with one shot as well. It definitely is a feasible deck. It's a great deck. It's more than feasible. It works. It works, as you just saw with the Solitaire there. There's many, many, many times that that's exactly how it happened. Double colorless, Colress Machine, Plasma Energy, Shadow Triad, Plasma Energy, and I'm already up. And even if that, I'm already up with 4 energy on him and ready to swing away. And if I have Deoxys on the bench, he's even more deadly. But not even with that, it was his ability to shuffle your hand in and draw 6. So even if you didn't get to your 4 energy and you blew through your hand, you could always windfall and shuffle your hand in and draw 6 cards. So if I had 2 cards in my hand, I play everything out. I have 2 cards in my hand. He's only got 3 energy on him, possibly. I just windfall and draw 6 more cards. Sure, my turn ends, but I start the beginning of my next turn with 6 cards instead of 2 or 3, and then I could keep going and try to get that 220 mark and just knock everything out. So that's what I mean by deck mechanics, the flow of a deck, how a deck has to work. All the cards have to work together. They have to work together. You cannot just take 60 cards that you think are cool, a bunch of Pokemon you think are cool. This Pokemon looks cool, this Pokemon's got a high attack, I like him, I like this, I like that. You throw it all into a big pile, and you got a 60 card pile of junk that is not going to flow. It's not going to work. It just won't work. You have to have a basis for the deck, a flow of the deck. You have to have an engine, a deck engine. Engines make things move and run and work. Car engines make a car go, boat engines make a boat go, so on, so on, so on. You have to have an engine, and in this case, the engine is the call rest machines, ways to get it back, attaching the energy quick, just like an engine for the fire decks, like I said, where you would have the blacksmiths where you discard fire energy and you blacksmith and attach them. Nowadays you have like welder and things of that nature. You can attach for turn, you can welder 2 onto it, you could do energy spinner, you can use giant hearth, discard a card, and get 2 fire energy, and then you could welder on, and then all of a sudden you got 3 energy on a fire Pokemon, or any Pokemon really, because welder puts it on type 2 fire energy on any Pokemon, and you get to draw cards off of it. So those are the engines. That's how it works. That's the deck mechanics. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you've ever seen this deck, played against this deck, if you like this deck, what you think about this deck. Because like I said, this is one of my favorite decks ever in history of playing Pokemon. I've been playing this game since the 90s since like it came out. I love this game and I love this deck, and let me know what you think, and thank you for joining No Prize Cards Left, and as always, keep on battling.